"You're not welcome here anymore, Tom." That's what the note on the front door said. Underneath, taped to the wreath like a scarlet letter, was my photograph, creased, hole-punched, and stamped with 3 red words in thick marker. "Do not let him in." Snow crunched under my boots as I stared at it. The porch light flickered, catching the edges of the picture like a wanted poster. Behind the door, I could hear Christmas music, Silent Night, soft and warm, and the muffled sound of laughter, my family's. Except, I was on the outside, my breath fogging in the cold. I'm Tom, 75, widower, Vietnam vet, builder of the house they're celebrating in. The one who strung the first lights on those eaves 40 years ago, who carved his initials and his wife's in the porch beam, who paid for the mortgage when their parents couldn't. That house is part of me, or it was. Through the frosted window, I caught a glimpse of my oldest grandson, Jacob, tall and lean, raising a glass near the tree. He wore my father's old sweater, the one I gave him last year. Beside him stood Lily, my granddaughter, wearing a sequined red dress, laughing as if nothing in the world could touch her. In the corner, I saw my daughter, Ellen, handing out gifts. And above the mantel, my wife's photo smiled down at them, like a ghost that didn't realize she'd been left behind. I knocked. Once, twice. The door cracked open just enough for a young man in a suit to poke his head out. Not family, a security guard. For Christmas. "Sir," he said politely, glancing at the note, "I've been instructed not to let you in." I laughed once, sharp and bitter. I built this house. I paid for this dinner. I bought that tree in the living room 30 years ago. Does that mean nothing? "I'm sorry, sir. Family's orders." Family. The word burned. I pulled out my phone and called Jacob. He answered with background chatter and the clinking of glasses. "Hey, Grandpa." "Jacob," I said slowly. "I'm standing at the door. There's a picture of me taped to the wreath like I'm a criminal. Explain." A pause. Then his voice dropped, rehearsed. "Grandpa, it was a group decision. We just thought it would be less stressful for everyone if you didn't come this year." "Less stressful?" My voice cracked like the ice under my boots. "It's just, you have strong opinions. Lily didn't want drama. Mom agreed. We figured it's best this way." "This way," I repeated. Through the crack, warm air drifted out. Cinnamon, pine, turkey roasting. Inside, Jacob was toasting. Outside, I was breathing frost. "I'm family," I whispered. "I know," he said softly. "But it's our Christmas now. Please don't make this harder." The line went dead. For a moment, I stood there, listening. The piano kicked into Jingle Bell Rock. Someone popped a bottle of champagne. A child squealed over a toy. Life went on. Without me. I walked back down the steps slowly, the snow hissing under my weight. My truck sat under the streetlight, its hood powdered white. I opened the door, climbed in, and sat behind the wheel. Not moving, just breathing. The windows were fogged within minutes. My fingers itched toward the glove compartment. Inside was my old leather ledger, the one I'd kept for decades. I flipped it open. Pages and pages of neat handwriting. Property taxes I'd covered for Ellen. Loan payments I'd made for Jacob's college. Renovation receipts, Christmas funds, proof. They'd barred me from the house I built. But their warm holiday was built on my signature. My phone buzzed. A text from Ellen. "Dad, please don't cause a scene. It's better this way." Better. Something cold settled deep in my chest. Not anger, not heartbreak. Ice. I scrolled through my contacts and tapped a number I hadn't dialed in years. Harold, my lawyer. He answered on the second ring. "Tom, Merry Christmas." "Harold," I said calmly, staring at the glowing house across the street. "I need to talk to you about some deeds." "Deeds? Tom, it's Christmas Eve." "I know," I said, "and it's the perfect night to rewrite who owns what." He fell silent, hearing something in my voice he hadn't heard before. "Tom, what happened?" "They told me I wasn't welcome anymore." I leaned back, watching snowflakes catch the streetlight. Inside that house, my grandchildren were clinking glasses under a tree I paid for. They thought shutting the door would end me. They had no idea what door they'd just opened. Harold cleared his throat. "Tell me what you need." "Everything," I said. "I want everything put on the table. The house, the trust, the accounts. We're going to make some changes. Somewhere inside, someone started singing carols off key. Laughter followed. It was the kind of sound that used to make my chest swell with pride. Now it scraped against me like sandpaper. As Harold and I talked, my eyes never left the house. The glowing windows, the flicker of the tree, my legacy, enjoying its feast. Without me. The snow thickened, blanketing the truck, muting the world. The engine idled low, like a beast waiting in the dark. They thought Christmas without Grandpa Tom would be peaceful. They didn't know peace was about to end. And it would end quietly. The morning after that Christmas, the world outside my window was silent under a crust of snow. I sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in my old flannel robe, sipping black coffee that steamed against the frosted glass. Across the street, Ellen's house glowed with the lazy aftermath of a holiday well fed. Their trash bins overflowed with crumpled wrapping paper and empty wine bottles. My house, by contrast, was spotless, quiet, alone. You'd think 75 winters would dull the sting. They don't. If anything, betrayal cuts cleaner when it comes from the people you helped raise. My grandkids weren't just children to me. After my wife died, they were my heartbeat. I was the one who taught Jacob how to change his first tire, the one who paid Lily's tuition when her father's business tanked, the one who still shoveled their driveway every winter when their backs acted up. For decades, I'd stepped in quietly, filling gaps their parents couldn't or wouldn't fill. And on Christmas Eve, they taped my face to a wreath like I was an intruder. I opened my ledger again, tracing the lines with my finger. This wasn't just a notebook, it was a map of everything I'd built for them. Mortgage payments for Ellen's house, $118,000 over the years. Jacob's tuition, $62,000. Lily's dance academy fees, $24,000. Renovations, Christmas funds, insurance premiums. A lifetime of just helping out. They thought I'd keep doing it forever. Around 9:15 a.m., Harold arrived at my house. He stomped snow off his boots at the door, rubbing his hands together. "Tom, you sure about this?" I nodded slowly. I've never been more sure of anything. We spread papers across the dining table like a battlefield. Trust documents, deeds, bank records. Harold adjusted his glasses. "All right. The house, you still hold the deed entirely in your name. You transferred inheritance rights to Ellen and the kids through the family trust. But that can be amended. The accounts, your signature alone controls them." "Good," I said. My voice was steady. "We start there." He tapped his pen. "Tom, this will send a message." "Exactly," I replied. Outside, Jacob's car rolled into their driveway. He was still wearing the same sweater from last night. He hopped out, laughing into his phone, oblivious. My jaw tightened. That boy had no idea that the roof over his head existed because I'd quietly bailed his parents out of foreclosure twice. Harold cleared his throat. "The trust modifications will take a couple of weeks, but the accounts, you can act immediately. You're listed as the primary on their home insurance policy too, remember? You set that up years ago." I smiled faintly. "Yes, I remember." Harold leaned forward. "Tom, what exactly are you planning?" I looked him dead in the eye. "To let them feel what it's like when the man they erased disappears." By noon, I'd already pulled funding from 3 automatic transfers, utilities, insurance, and Jacob's tuition installment. I'd signed the forms with a pen that didn't shake once. That afternoon, the first crack appeared. Ellen showed up at my door. Cheeks flushed from the cold and something else, nervous energy. She didn't knock so much as hover. "Dad," she started, shifting from foot to foot. "Jacob's tuition payment didn't go through. The school called this morning." I leaned against the doorframe, the same way I had on Christmas Eve. "Did they?" She frowned. "You're the guarantor. Did something happen with your bank?" "No," I said evenly. "Nothing happened to my bank. Something happened to my patients." Her face tightened. "Dad, this isn't funny." "I'm not laughing," I replied. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Look, the kids didn't mean to hurt you. It was just complicated. Lily thought you'd bring tension. Jacob said you'd lecture him. We all agreed it would be easier. Easier to humiliate me on my own porch," I cut in. The color drained from her cheeks. We didn't humiliate you. I pointed toward her house. Whose idea was the photo? She glanced away. Lily printed it. Jacob taped it. I didn't stop them. There it was. The casual betrayal of convenience. No malice, just cowardice. Dad, she said softly, don't do anything drastic. We'll talk about it. After New Year's. Let everyone calm down. I held her gaze. Ellen, I've been calm for years. That's how we got here. She flinched, then forced a brittle smile. Fine, just please don't mess with the kid's education. Jacob needs this semester. I closed the door slowly, not slamming, just final. Inside, Harold was stacking papers into neat piles. You sure you're ready for what comes next? I glanced at the snow beginning to fall again, soft and steady. They wanted Christmas without me. Let's see how they like the new year. That evening, I made a quiet call to the Homeowners Association president, Mrs. Whitman. She owed me a favor. I told her about some upcoming changes to Ellen's insurance policy and the possible implications for compliance. She listened carefully. Thank you for the heads up, Tom. I'll keep an eye on their file. Perfect. By midnight, the house was quiet except for the hum of the furnace. I sat by the window with my coffee, watching their lights across the street flicker off one by one. They had no idea what was coming. Next week, the real unraveling would begin, and they wouldn't even hear it until it was already inside their walls. January 3rd arrived like a blade hidden in winter's quiet. The snow had hardened overnight, crunching under boots like breaking glass. I was up before dawn. The house dim except for the kitchen lamp pooling light across my ledger. Steam curled from my mug as I flipped to a fresh page. This wasn't anger anymore. This was precision. The first thread I pulled was insurance. Decades ago, when Ellen and her husband couldn't qualify for a decent homeowner's policy, I stepped in, paid the premiums, added myself as the primary. Every year, like clockwork, I renewed it. They'd gotten so used to it that they probably thought the house just came with coverage by divine right. At 8:15 a.m., I called the insurance company. Yes, I said in my calm, slow voice. I'd like to remove secondary parties and place the policy on hold pending review. No, I'm not canceling. I'm suspending, temporarily. The woman on the line hesitated. Mr. Thompson, this will trigger an automatic compliance notification to the HOA. I'm aware, I said. Send it. At 11:07 a.m., Ellen's number flashed on my phone. I let it ring out. A voicemail followed, frantic, breathless. Dad, the HOA just called. Something about insurance. What are you doing? I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I drove into town. The sky was a flat pewter, and my truck's tires hissed against salt-streaked roads. I parked outside the local bank, the same one that held the trust I'd set up years ago. Inside, everything smelled faintly of peppermint and printer ink. The branch manager, Diane, knew me by name. Morning, Tom. Back from the holidays? I smiled thinly. Something like that. I need to make some trust amendments. She raised an eyebrow. Big changes? Foundational, I said. We sat in her glass office while I signed papers, transferring control of certain disbursements out of automatic release and into discretionary status. College funds, property tax buffers, emergency family accounts. For years, I'd set those up to flow like clockwork. Not anymore. She slid the last form toward me. This means your grandchildren will need your approval before anything moves. It'll surprise them. I pressed my pen down slowly. That's the point. That afternoon, Jacob called. No greeting, just a barked, "Grandpa, my college account froze. What did you do?" I didn't do anything, I replied, dead calm. I just stopped pretending money grows on trees. He groaned. Come on, you can't do this in the middle of the semester. I've got housing, books. Should have thought of that before you printed my picture and taped it to the door, I said. There was a stunned silence. Then, it was a joke. It wasn't, I said, and hung up. By evening, Ellen knocked again, harder this time. Her breath puffed white in the cold. Dad, open the door. We need to talk. I opened it just enough to let the icy air in. Talking seems to happen only when you need something. She pushed her way in like she used to when she was a teenager, trying to take control of a room she didn't own. The HOA gave us a notice. 30 days to show proof of insurance or face fines. Jacob's freaking out. Lily's dance tuition bounced. You're pulling everything out from under us. No, I corrected softly. I'm simply standing where I always was. You're just noticing the floor used to be me. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. Maybe she didn't. I wasn't the quiet fixer anymore. She tried the sentimental angle. Dad, Mom wouldn't want this. She loved Christmas. She loved the kids. I met her eyes. Your mother loved respect. You taped mine to a door. Her mouth opened, then closed. No words. Just that hollow silence when someone realizes the old script won't work anymore. I walked her to the door. She didn't resist. She just looked over her shoulder once, like a woman watching a house she thought was hers, slowly shift on its foundation. The next morning, the first official letter from the HOA landed in their mailbox. Non-compliance warning. At noon, Jacob texted, I can't register for classes until the account's fixed. What's your problem? I didn't reply. I didn't have a problem. They did. That night, I sat at my desk, ledger open, pen scratching slow, deliberate lines. Across the street, their Christmas lights still hung, dull and forgotten now, swaying in the wind. Inside, silhouettes moved frantically. Ellen on the phone, Jacob pacing, Lily crying at the kitchen island. They were just beginning to feel the cold. January slid by like a slow thaw, except over at Ellen's house. The freeze was setting in deeper. By the second week, the HOA's compliance notice had turned into a formal letter stamped in bold red. Final warning. 14 days to provide proof of insurance. Their mailbox flag hung limply in the winter wind, stuffed with envelopes they didn't want to open. I knew because I watched Jacob retrieve them each morning, scanning, frowning, and shoving them into his jacket like secrets. Inside my house, everything was neat, quiet. Ledger on the table, coffee on the stove. This wasn't gloating, it was control. The kind I'd handed over for years without them ever noticing. One icy morning, I saw Lily's red hatchback pull out too fast from their driveway, tires spinning against the snow. She wasn't heading to class. She was heading to the dance academy on registration day. I knew that because I'd written the first check for it 3 years ago. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Grandpa, it's Lily. Her voice was thin. They said the payment didn't go through. They're giving me until Friday to fix it or I lose my spot. I didn't know. Mom said it was all automatic. It was, I said evenly. I set it up that way. I also stopped it that way. Her voice cracked. Why are you doing this? I stared out the window at the brittle gray sky. Because, sweetheart, sometimes people need to feel the cold to remember who kept the fire burning. She sniffed. This isn't fair. No, I said softly. It isn't. And I hung up. That same afternoon, Harold came by with fresh documents. He stamped his boots, brushed snow off his shoulders, and spread the papers across my kitchen table like surgical tools. Tom, he said, sliding the top page toward me. This is the deed amendment. You can legally remove Ellen and her kids as beneficiaries of the property trust and redirect future ownership, however you want. It won't change current occupancy, but it changes everything they're assuming is theirs, I finished. He nodded slowly. Exactly. Once this is filed, they don't inherit the house by default. If you wanted to, you could even set it to liquidate on your passing and divert the funds elsewhere. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't tremble. It moved like it remembered how to carve lines into stone. That night, Ellen knocked again, but this time, she wasn't alone. Jacob hovered behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. Lily lingered near the porch light, bundled in a coat too thin for the cold. I opened the door just wide enough to lean against the frame. Ellen started, Dad, we need to talk about what's happening. This? I interrupted. You mean the part where you're finally standing on your own 2 feet? Jacob bristled. This is childish? Over Christmas? Really? You're ruining everything because you got your feelings hurt? My eyes narrowed. Say that again. He shifted. Not so brave up close. Ellen tried to smooth it over. Dad, you've always helped. We counted on you. We thought... You didn't think, I cut in. You decided. You decided I didn't belong. You decided Christmas would be quieter without the man who paid for the roof over your heads. And now you're realizing roofs cost money. Lily's voice was small. We didn't mean to hurt you, Grandpa. I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't cruel, just spoiled by my quiet generosity. Intentions don't build houses, Lily. Payments do. The porch light hummed. None of them had anything left to say. I closed the door, leaving their silhouettes in the cold. The very next morning, a white envelope arrived from the county tax office. I knew that envelope well. I'd received it like clockwork for decades. My automatic payments kept the property clean, on time, never a late fee. This time, it was addressed to Ellen. Unpaid taxes, first notice. I imagined her face when she opened it. The way her stomach would sink as she realized those envelopes had always gone to me, and that was why she'd never had to think about them. By the end of that week, cracks were showing in places I'd long predicted. Jacob missed his registration deadline. Lily's Academy held her spot for one more week, then posted a polite announcement welcoming a new student. Ellen was on the phone constantly, insurance companies, banks, the school, the HOA, trying to juggle things she never bothered to learn. And me? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't bang on doors. I just turned off the taps I'd opened years ago. The night before the HOA's final deadline, I saw them through my window, all three of them in the living room. Papers spread across the table, Ellen rubbing her temples, Jacob pacing, Lily crying into her hands. This wasn't the end. It was only the middle. February came in with a brittle cold that creaked through the trees and bit at the eaves of every house on the street. By then, Ellen's house didn't glow at night anymore. The once cheerful Christmas lights were sagging, half burned out, dangling like a forgotten promise. Their windows, which used to spill warm light onto the snow, now stayed mostly dark. I'd been waiting for this month. February was when the real pressure points started to pop. Property taxes, insurance penalties, tuition late fees, all the little invisible gears that had kept their lives smooth were beginning to grind. I sat at my kitchen table early one morning, ledger open, coffee steaming, as the phone started buzzing. Ellen, I let it ring. Then Jacob. I let it ring too. Finally Lily. I sighed, picked it up. Grandpa, she whispered. Her voice was frayed. They sent a letter. It says we're in violation. The HOA is threatening to fine us and suspend privileges. Mom's freaking out. She says if we don't fix the insurance thing, they'll escalate it to legal. They will, I said simply. Can't you just... No, sweetheart, I interrupted. I can't just anything anymore. Silence. Then a tiny, I miss how it used to be. I didn't answer that. Some sentences are traps dressed as tenderness. That afternoon, I received a certified letter addressed to me from the bank. Inside was a notification of a request. Jacob had tried to access one of the trust sub-accounts. The note was short and sharp. Request denied. Authorization required. Good. At 4 p.m., Ellen showed up again, bundled tight against the wind, cheeks flushed and jaw set like she'd rehearsed a speech all the way over. Dad, this is insane. The HOA is threatening daily fines. Jacob's tuition is overdue. Lily's crushed. We can't keep juggling this. You have to help. I stepped onto the porch, letting the door click shut behind me. No, I said calmly. Her eyes flashed. You can help. You're just choosing not to. You're right, I said. I'm choosing not to. She stared at me, waiting for the old Tom to blink. The one who'd cave when his daughter looked desperate. I didn't. She exhaled hard, shifting tactics. Look, we were wrong, okay? The Christmas thing, it was stupid. The kids wanted to try something different. We thought, you'd make a scene. I didn't make a scene, I said. I stood in the snow while my picture hung on your door. That was your scene, not mine. Her shoulders sagged, then stiffened again. Fine, punish me, but don't punish them. They're just kids. Kids? I said softly. Jacob is 23. Lily's 20. They're not children. They're adults who thought Christmas would be easier without the man holding the beams up. She blinked hard, but I saw it. The crack. Not rage this time. Fear. That weekend, the HOA made good on its threat. A thick packet arrived by courier. Insurance noncompliance. Violation assessment. 30 days to remedy or face legal action. a $200 fine stapled to the back. I watched from my window as Jacob stormed out to the mailbox, ripped the packet open, and cursed into the wind. Lily followed him, crying again. Ellen leaned against the doorframe, pale, rubbing her forehead like the world was suddenly too heavy. Good. Let them feel it. The following Tuesday, Harold called. "Tom, I just got word from the bank. Jacob tried to apply for a short-term loan, using your trust as collateral. The bank flagged it immediately. I assume you didn't authorize it?" I let out a cold breath. "No, I didn't, and now I know exactly how desperate they are getting." Harold was quiet for a moment. "You know this is escalating?" "Yes," I said, "and they're the ones doing it." That night, around 9, headlights swept across my living room. I peeked through the curtain. Jacob's car. He sat there in the driveway for a full minute, engine idling, snow swirling around him. Then he got out, trudged through the powder, and knocked just once. When I opened the door, he wasn't the cocky kid from Christmas. He was thinner. His eyes had dark circles. "Grandpa," he said, voice low, "I messed up. I thought the trust money would be accessible. I thought you'd help like always. I didn't think it through." "No," I said quietly. "You didn't." He swallowed hard. "We're drowning." I studied him. The boy who once followed me around the workshop, handing me nails like they were treasure, now standing on my porch, not out of love, out of need. "Grandpa," he whispered, "please." I didn't raise my voice. "Where was this please when you taped my picture to the door?" He winced like I'd struck him. I didn't say another word. I just slowly closed the door. His figure blurred behind the frosted glass as he stood there a while longer, then walked back through the snow, shoulders hunched against the wind. Inside, the house was still, warm. My coffee had gone cold. But I didn't care. They'd spent years thinking my support was background noise, constant, invisible. Now, the silence was louder than any storm. March didn't arrive like a lion. It crept in quiet, heavy, the way a house settles before a storm splits the beams. The snow was thinning by then, patchy and gray, but the cold hadn't gone anywhere. It just moved lower, into the bones, into theirs especially. I could see it. Ellen's house had started to change. Not the walls, but the energy. Curtains that were once open all day now stayed drawn. Lights flicked on and off like they were rationing bulbs. Even Jacob's car disappeared for days at a time. I didn't need to ask. I knew exactly why. The property tax deadline was March 1st, and for the first time in decades, the county office didn't receive a payment from me. On the morning of March 3rd, a thin envelope from the county arrived at Ellen's door. I watched Jacob tear it open in his sweatshirt and slippers. His shoulders stiffened. He read it once, twice, then ran back inside like the letter was on fire. Delinquency notice? 10% penalty added. Warning of lien procedures if unresolved. They'd never seen one before. I'd always intercepted them, paid them. Quietly. That afternoon, Ellen knocked. She didn't bother with small talk. "Dad," she said, holding the notice in her hand, shaking it at me. "Did you stop paying the property taxes?" I met her eyes. "Yes." Her jaw fell. "Why? Why would you do that? You've always handled it." "That's the problem," I said. "I always did." She followed me into the kitchen without asking, like she used to when she was a teenager trying to argue her way out of curfew. "This is serious. If we don't pay, the county will issue a lien," I finished calmly. "Yes, I read the fine print decades ago." "Then help us." I turned slowly, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "Help you? Ellen, 3 months ago, you taped my face to a door and told me not to come inside. Do you remember that?" Her lips parted. "That was a choice," I interrupted, "and choices have weight." She took a breath, tried softening her voice. "Dad, I know you're hurt. I know we handled it badly. But the kids, this house, I said, existed because I never asked questions when I wrote checks. Because I treated family like family, and you treated me like a background service you could shut off when you didn't want to deal with me." Her eyes filled, but I didn't flinch. That same week, Lily showed up after class. She didn't knock. She stood at the end of my walkway like a kid in trouble, clutching her coat tight. "Grandpa," she said softly, Mom says if we don't fix this, we could lose the house. Is that true? Yes, I said simply. She shuffled closer through the slush. I don't want us to lose it. I don't want things to be like this. Christmas? It wasn't supposed to mean you were gone forever. I studied her face, the one that used to light up when I built her dollhouses in the garage. Now she looked like someone realizing the floor under her was made of paper. Actions have echoes, Lily, I said quietly. Some come back as whispers, some as wind. She wiped her nose on her sleeve. I'm sorry. I nodded once. That's a start, but apologies don't pay taxes. She flinched. A few days later, I received a letter myself. Not from the county, not from the bank. From their insurance company. Since the policy had been suspended and no proof was filed, the insurer had dropped coverage entirely. The HOA would be notified next. I sat at the kitchen table, the letter in hand, and almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was inevitable. That night, around 10 p.m., headlights swept across my porch. Ellen's SUV. She didn't even turn it off before sprinting up the steps. Her hair was messy, her face pale. She pounded on the door like the house was on fire. Dad, she yelled. They dropped the insurance. We're getting fined daily. The county's threatening legal action. Jacob's talking about taking out a personal loan, but his credit's a mess. Lily's crying every night. I can't... She broke off, gasping like she'd been holding everything together with fraying string. I opened the door slowly. Let the cold air in. Ellen, I said quietly, I gave you 40 years of support without asking for anything. You gave me one winter of betrayal. I'm not the one who started this. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man she was talking to. Maybe she didn't. You're going to destroy us, she whispered. No, I said, voice like ice. You destroyed the bridge. I just stopped walking across it. She staggered back a step, like the words themselves had weight. Then she turned and walked to her car slowly, headlights cutting across the snow before disappearing down the street. I stood there for a long time after she was gone, looking at the empty road. The night was quiet, too quiet, the kind that comes before something shifts for good. I closed the door, walked back to my desk, and pulled out a new file folder. On the tab, I wrote in clean block letters, inheritance, revision draft. Then I set it right on top of the ledger. March was only the beginning. April would decide their future. By the time April rolled in, the snow was mostly gone, leaving behind muddy lawns and brittle patches of dead grass. But over at Ellen's house, the thaw didn't bring relief. It brought exposure. Every crack they'd covered with borrowed time was now out in the open. The county had issued a second delinquency notice, thicker this time, official. Their unpaid insurance fines were stacking up daily. Lily's dance dreams had quietly died weeks earlier. Jacob was failing to secure loans. And Ellen, who had spent her life counting on my quiet hand beneath the floorboards, was running out of hands to grab. I watched it all unfold from across the street, ledger open, pen steady. This wasn't cruelty, this was clarity. One crisp morning, I saw Ellen on the porch, cordless phone pressed tight to her ear, pacing like a trapped animal, her voice carried across the cul-de-sac. No, I told you it's temporary. My father will fix it soon. He always does. She froze mid-sentence, realizing what she'd just said. He always does. Not this time. Inside my house, Harold spread out new papers across the kitchen table. Tom, he said, tapping the top document, this is the inheritance revision draft. If you sign this, Ellen and her kids are no longer direct beneficiaries. Instead, the assets liquidate into a scholarship foundation under your name. No automatic transfer to the family. I turned the pen between my fingers. Will they know immediately? Once filed, yes. Legally, they'll receive notice within 30 days. Practically, you could tell them whenever you like. I leaned back, listening to the distant sound of Ellen's screen door slamming. No, the letter will do. Harold hesitated. This is permanent, Tom. I met his eyes. So was standing in the snow at Christmas with my face taped to a door. And I signed. 2 weeks later, the ripple hit. A courier truck pulled into Ellen's driveway around noon. I was trimming the hedge when I saw the driver hand her a thick envelope. She opened it on the porch. Her knees visibly wobbled. She called for Jacob, her voice cracking like ice underfoot. Lily came out behind him. They read it together, heads bent over the packet. Then Ellen sank down onto the steps and covered her mouth with her hand. I didn't need to hear the words. I knew the letter's first line by heart. This notice is to inform you of recent amendments to the Thompson Family Trust. Effective immediately. All previous beneficiary designations are void. That night, they came to my door together, Ellen, Jacob, and Lily, like some shaken delegation. They didn't knock right away. They stood there in a huddle under the porch light, arguing in whispers. Then Jacob knocked once, sharp. I opened the door and leaned against the frame, exactly as I had on Christmas Eve. Ellen spoke first, holding the letter like a live grenade. Dad, what is this? It's a revision, I said evenly. You're cutting us out? Her voice broke. I'm setting things right, I said. I built this house. I funded your lives. I taught you how to stand. And when winter came, you taped my face to the door. You didn't just exclude me, you erased me. Now, I'm returning the favor, legally. Jacob stepped forward. You can't just... This house is ours. I raised an eyebrow. Yours? Show me your name on the deed. Show me a check with your signature. Go ahead. He faltered. Lily wiped at her cheeks, mascara smudging. Grandpa, please, don't do this. We made a mistake. Christmas was stupid. We were stupid. I softened slightly when I looked at her, but softness wasn't going to undo decades of being their safety net. Lily, I said quietly, mistakes are locking your keys in the car. What you did was deliberate. Ellen stepped closer. We can fix this, Dad. We can make it right. Let us make it right. I held her gaze. You want to make it right? You can't undo what's been signed. But you can live with the world as it is now, where my help isn't the wind at your back, where consequences don't disappear in the mail. Jacob's voice cracked. You're going to die and give everything to strangers? To students who need a chance, I corrected. Kids who won't tape a man's face to a door in the middle of winter. The silence after that was heavy, like fresh snow on a weak roof. Ellen's eyes glistened. So that's it? I nodded once. That's it. They left slowly, like people walking away from a house they no longer owned. Because, in truth, they weren't walking away. They were just finally realizing the ground beneath them had never belonged to them at all. By late April, the HOA had filed legal proceedings. The county had issued a lien. Their house was no longer a Christmas postcard. It was a warning sign. Neighbors whispered. People noticed. The family that once held big dinners, loud laughter, and polished appearances was unraveling thread by thread. And I didn't lift a finger. I just stopped being their invisible foundation. That evening, as the sun set gold over the muddy lawns, I sat on my porch, sipping coffee. Across the street, their lights were out again. A single notice was taped to their door this time, not mine. It was from the county. I whispered to the quiet air, spring cleaning's just getting started. May arrived without mercy. The trees were budding, birds were back, kids were riding bikes down the street. But across from me, Ellen's house looked like winter had never left. The shutters needed paint, the grass had gone patchy, and their once proud porch had a sagging "For Sale by Owner" sign jammed into the dirt like a white flag. They hadn't spoken to me in 2 weeks, not since the trust revision letter detonated their little illusion. I'd seen Jacob hauling boxes into his trunk, Lily skipping her dance rehearsals, and Ellen sitting on the porch late at night, holding her phone but never dialing. The silence between us was louder than any fight. On May 6th, a letter arrived from the county, this time addressed to me. It was a formal notice of lien placement on Ellen's property. A copy only because my name had been listed as former payer of record. I read it slowly, sipping coffee as if it were a headline about strangers. They were officially in default. At noon, there was pounding on my door, not knocking, pounding, Jacob's voice raw. Grandpa, open the door! I opened it just enough. He stood there sweaty, frantic, holding the lien notice. This is insane. The county's coming after the house. Mom's losing it. Lily's crying every day. You have to fix this. I tilted my head. No, I don't. He stepped closer, desperation crackling through his voice. You're just gonna sit there and watch your family lose everything after everything you built? I met his eyes, steady as stone. After everything I built, you told me I wasn't welcome. Now you get to see what life looks like without me propping it up." He let out a bitter laugh. "You're getting revenge." I didn't deny it. "I'm getting clarity." He stared for a beat, then spat. "You're cold." I leaned on the doorframe. "No, Jacob. I'm finally not being used." He stormed off, kicking at the slush like a child denied dessert. 2 days later, Ellen came, not angry, deflated. She stood on my porch with a folder clutched to her chest. Her voice was quiet, almost fragile. "Dad, I can't sleep. I can't breathe. Every day it's another letter, another call. I know we hurt you. I know we messed up. But can you really sit there and let this house go? Let us lose everything?" I gestured toward the porch steps. She sat. I didn't. "Ellen," I said calmly, "this house was never yours. You lived in it. You decorated it. You raised kids in it. But you never paid for it. You never maintained it. You never once called the tax office. You just assumed someone else would take care of it. And for decades, that someone was me." She pressed the folder tighter. "If I say I'm sorry, if we admit everything, will you help?" I studied her. My daughter. The girl who once sat on my shoulders to hang that very wreath on Christmas Eve. "Ellen, apologies don't rewind signatures. The trust is changed. The taxes are due. The insurance is gone. This isn't about me anymore. This is about you facing a world you never bothered to understand." Her eyes filled. "You're breaking us." I shook my head. "No, you did that on Christmas Eve." That weekend, a county vehicle parked outside their house. 2 men in jackets inspected the property with clipboards. Neighbors watched from their windows. I watched from my porch, coffee in hand. Their house wasn't a home anymore. It was paperwork in motion. Lily came over that evening, alone. She stood at the end of my walkway, not daring to step on the porch. "Grandpa," she whispered, "they're scared." "I know," I said. "I am too," she added, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I didn't think it would go this far. I thought you'd forgive us. You always did." I walked down the steps, slow, steady. When I reached her, I placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Forgiveness and consequences aren't the same thing, Lily. I love you. I always will. But love doesn't erase what was done, and it doesn't pay property taxes." She nodded, sobbing quietly. For the first time since Christmas, she didn't ask me for anything. She just cried. On May 21st, Ellen received the foreclosure pre-notice. I know because she dropped it, right there on the porch. I watched her pick it back up with shaking hands. Jacob slammed the door. Lily ran to her room. The following night, their porch light stayed off. Not because the bulb was out, because no one wanted to answer anymore. By the last week of May, their house had become the quiet one on the block. No parties, no music, no late-night chatter, just tension, paper, and consequences. And me? I planted tomatoes. I cleaned the gutters. I slept well. On May 31st, I received a letter from Ellen, handwritten, not asking for help this time. Just 4 words on a single sheet. "We didn't see you." I folded it slowly and slid it into the back of my ledger behind the trust documents. "No," I whispered to the empty kitchen. "You never did." June came in bright, almost cruelly so. The sky was clear, the lawns were green again, and the neighborhood smelled of barbecues and fresh paint. Across the street, their house was the only one that didn't match. The grass was overgrown. The porch light was dead. A foreclosure notice was taped to the door, where, 6 months ago, my photograph had hung. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I just watched. Quiet. Inside my kitchen, the ledger sat closed for the first time in months. Every box ticked. Every thread pulled. There was nothing left to adjust, cancel, or redirect. The machine that had powered their lives had finally run itself dry. On June 5th, Ellen knocked, not with panic this time, not with rage, just once, soft. When I opened the door, she stood there hollow-eyed, holding a manila envelope. "It's happening," she said simply. "The house. They gave us 60 days. I said nothing. She held out the envelope like it weighed 100 pounds. "I found this in Mom's cedar chest. It's a letter she wrote. To you, to me, to the kids. She wrote it before she got sick. You should read it." I didn't take it. You read it, I said. She stared at me for a moment, then nodded weakly and walked back down the steps. The envelope hung limp at her side, like a white flag she wasn't brave enough to raise. That night, I sat by the window, watching their porch through the darkness. For the first time, there were no whispered arguments, no frantic pacing, no late-night lights. Just silence. The kind that isn't peaceful, just empty. A week later, Lily appeared. No makeup, no pleading. She just stood on the edge of my driveway, twisting the strap of her bag. "Grandpa," she said quietly, "they're talking about moving. Jacob's blaming everyone. Mom's different now. She doesn't yell. She just sits. We lost everything." I stepped outside. The air was warm, heavy with the scent of cut grass from the neighbors' yards. "No," I said evenly. "You lost the illusion that it was yours." She swallowed hard. "Are you happy now?" I looked at her for a long moment. Happiness had nothing to do with it. This wasn't about winning. This was about stopping. She nodded slowly. Tears welled, but she didn't beg. She just turned and walked away. On June 20th, I sat at my desk and drafted one last letter. Not to Ellen, not to Jacob, not to Lily, to myself. This is the last time I account for their weight. For decades, I built their world in silence. They mistook that silence for weakness. Now they know what it really was. Power, and it's mine again. I signed it, folded it once, and placed it in the back of the ledger. Then I closed the book and locked it in the desk drawer. The day the moving truck pulled up, I didn't go outside. I just watched from behind the curtain as Ellen carried out boxes, Jacob hauled furniture, Lily followed with a small suitcase. No one looked my way, not once. And that was the twist. They hadn't just lost the house. They'd lost the habit of seeing me at all. And now, for the first time, that blindness worked in my favor. No confrontation, no shouting, no hugs. Just the quiet ending they'd chosen months ago, playing out in daylight. That evening, I walked across the empty street. The porch creaked under my boots. The foreclosure notice flapped in the breeze. I stood there a long time, looking at the door, the same door where my photo once hung. I didn't take the notice down. I didn't leave a note. I didn't need to. I turned, walked back across the street, and shut my door behind me. The house was silent, not lonely, not sad, just mine. Because sometimes the sharpest revenge doesn't roar. It doesn't grandstand. It just outlives the noise.